Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Swami Nityananda, the spiritual teacher and leader of the Awake Yoga Meditation community. She has dedicated her life to helping people experience greater joy, inner peace, and freedom through meditation and the practice of selfless service. Before fully embracing her spiritual path, she enjoyed a distinguished academic career as a professor of English, earning international recognition for her research and teaching. Today, she combines wisdom, humor, and practical guidance to help people cultivate kindness, self awareness, and a deeper connection with themselves and others. Swami, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Sekani, thank you for such a kind and thoughtful welcome.
All right. So, yes, I want you to take us back to your 20s, basically, right? So, what kind of person were you during that season of your life? And what dreams or ambitions were guiding you?
Oh, good question. So I was in graduate school in my 20s. I graduated with a bachelor's degree when I was 20. And so I went straight to grad school in English. And my motivation for grad school was love. Like I loved learning and I loved literature. And so that was the motivator. And so I would say for me, grad school was very intense. I had an amazing group of peers. So I really loved my colleagues. I loved my professors. It was super, I'm trying to think of how to say this, like a time to just really, really focus. And I enjoyed it very much. I would also acknowledge that it was very high stress. And so I'm happy to talk about just my perspective on stress from when I was in my 20s and my perspective on stress now, because I think it's probably fair to say that it's changed a little bit.
Wow. All right. Okay. I'd love for us to, dive into that actually. So, do you mean like, as you grow, your definition of stress changes, or you just learn to manage it more?
So maybe both. That's actually a really interesting question. Let me think about that. Thank you for such a thoughtful question. So I remember, okay, I'll give a really practical example. When I was in grad school, I remember talking with a wonderful person that I met at a conference, and she was just saying she loved her work as well, but she just felt nauseous with stress when she thought about writing her dissertation for her PhD. And so I'm really thankful I did not feel nauseous with stress when I was writing my dissertation for my PhD. But I think that what I have learned and what I would love to share with people now is that if you can reframe it, that stress can actually be helpful. So there's a certain amount of stress that is helpful. And I'm thinking about practically like any human of any age. If you're walking across the street and the traffic is coming at you quickly, like a bus is coming your way really quickly, you need to be able to get a burst of adrenaline to safely step out of the way of the bus. And so that's an example of healthy stress. And then another example of healthy stress is like, say that you have an exam to study for, or you have a presentation at work. And your stress, if it's healthy, motivates you. So it helps you focus, it helps you stay organized, it helps you stay on top of things. But I would also say that there's a lot of times, and I think the example of the beautiful person that I met, and she felt nauseous about writing her dissertation, that was an example of where stress gets turned off and then it doesn't get turned, it gets turned on, and then it doesn't get turned off. And that would be an example of where we can benefit by example, taking a walk or taking a little bit of a break or laughing with a friend or looking at a funny cat video online. Or other examples would be meditation or healthy exercise would be examples of down regulating our brain and our nervous system in a really helpful way.
Wow. Ooh, all right. So yes, thank you, Swami, for sharing that wonderful advice with us. Right. I would like to ask, right, was spirituality already a part of your life then, or did that journey unfold gradually over time?
So I think it was already a part of my life. And I would invite every listener to think about, from my perspective, I look back to my earliest awareness. And so I'm inviting every listener to think about what was your earliest awareness. And I knew that my body was connected to the natural world, and the natural world was connected to my body. So I always had this very respectful awareness of nature as being this very powerful force. And we have to sort of interact with nature in a wise way. And I think that taught me humility in a healthy way, that I was part of something much larger than myself. And so I would say that was an example of spirituality to me. And then also my parents, so the way that I grew up, my parents taught me respect for older people and that older people have so much wisdom. And so I listened to people from all backgrounds and walks of life and nationalities and education levels. And there were so many life lessons that every human that I met carried. And then my parents also taught me being of service, like whatever way that you can be kind or helpful or hopeful or share, do that. And so that was just kind of naturally my orientation to the world. And I guess I also feel really fortunate because I always felt I was part of a community in a really meaningful way. And so that's actually been my experience my whole life. Wherever I've been, I felt part of a community. And so I think I hear from people that they feel isolated, they feel disconnected. And I'm really grateful to say that I've been gifted or blessed with being part of a healthy community my whole life. And all of those things I consider examples of spirituality, almost like a natural, intrinsic spirituality that I think every human has access to. Like, I think every human has access to nature and to being able to listen to older people with respect and to learn life wisdom from them. And I think every human has access to making positive connections with people around you, being helpful, being hopeful, sharing whatever you have to share. And then I think community emerges naturally from that. So those parts of my experience were with me the whole way through.
Wow. All right. So yes, thank you, Swami, for that amazing one and for sharing your story with us, right? So I want us to talk about your journey. You often teach that joy and freedom are available to everyone. So what does true freedom mean from your perspective?
Fair. I love that question. Thank you so much. And I would say that it's freedom in the midst of daily life. And so I think often if humans think about what is freedom, we kind of think freedom from, like, and we think, oh, if only I didn't have to do this work, or if only I didn't have to take care of whatever this is that I have to take care of. But from my perspective, if I'm able to feel free in the midst of taking care of my daily responsibilities, then I'm free always. I'm not free only a few days out of the year when I'm on vacation, and I'm not free only for a few moments when I'm not working or taking care of whatever there is to take care of, but I'm able to be inwardly free always. And so for me, having a sense of joy and willingness about, of course, I'm like anybody. I have a really long to-do list. And so what I do is I bring joy and willingness and a sense of freedom into my to-do list, and then it's fun. Then it's not drudgery. And then it becomes almost like, I think children have a really healthy and playful and lighthearted approach to learning, and I'm able to bring that in and still, of course, draw on whatever expertise I've gained over the years and whatever learning I have gained over the years. So keep that, like for everyone, keep your adult wisdom and learning. But also, if you can, in a healthy and helpful way, reconnect with that sense of humor and that sense of curiosity and play and exploration and bring that in to your to-do list. And you'll just find that everything becomes much more enjoyable.
Wow. All right. Like you said, bring the fun to your to-do list and you find that, you enjoy the process, right? Instead of it becoming one long, boring thing, it's actually something you look forward to, right? So, okay. So, you know, um, many people, right, they spend years searching for like happiness through achievements, or should I say external success. So why do you believe that lasting joy comes from within?
So I guess like one of the things that I would say is I acknowledge the joy of outer achievement and outer success. Like, of course, it's amazing. Like if you've been studying and then you earn your degree, that's incredible. Or you've been working really hard at work and you get a promotion, that's beautiful. And please celebrate that. And please continue working toward your healthy outer goals in a really positive and wonderful way. But I would also say, if I define success in such a way that I say, I'll only be happy after I earn my PhD, or I'll only be happy after I get my ideal job, or only be happy after I'm living in the perfect apartment, or whatever it is. Like we always could come up with something more or something else that we're looking to happen in terms of outer achievement and success. And so then it's almost like I'm always just kind of reaching, and success and happiness are always like a little bit further than where I am right now. But instead, if I can allow myself to feel a sense of aliveness and a sense of intrinsic happiness and success so that I'm feeling joy the whole way through while I'm earning my PhD, then I'm happy the whole way through, not just for one moment after many years of hard labor. And so it's just to kind of shift our orientation and to say that actually, I would say true happiness and achievement and success are a natural byproduct of our being in contact with the joy and the aliveness and the intrinsic motivation and happiness and success that are always within us. And then if I get the promotion, great, that's really delightful, but I'm still okay. And I'm still having a healthy sense of I'm happy to be alive. I love my work. I'm happy to be of service as much as possible to my clients or my colleagues or whoever I'm working with. And then I'm happy independently of what is going on externally.
Mm. Wow. Ooh. All right. Okay. So yes, thank you for that amazing one. Right. And I was thinking, I don't know if I can say this, but meditation can sometimes feel intimidating, or should I say strange to beginners. So for someone who has never tried it before, what would you say is the simplest way to, begin meditation?
Fair enough. And I mean, be honest with yourself. If you do feel, okay, I'm intimidated, I don't know how to meditate, it sounds really hard or strange, be honest
Mm,
and say that. But then one of the quickest ways to meditate, I think, is to breathe. And so just to breathe a calm, deep, smooth breath into your heart
mm,
is an example. And then just to keep breathing into your heart. And if you like, you also can connect with the feeling of being in nature. So I know some people like trees or water or just whatever the nature is that you like, connect with that feeling of being in nature. And I live in the city, but I can connect with the feeling of nature even in the city. And it helps my heart rate be calm and happy. It helps my cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone, be calm and happy. And just breathing into my heart. And also, I would say breathing into my heart, that's something I can do in the middle of a conversation, whether it's a professional conversation or a business meeting or presentation, or it's like a personal conversation in my family. And so breathing into my heart just helps me connect with my highest self. And everyone is naturally able to connect with their highest self. And I would say that's what meditation is. And so just start where you are, and even taking 3 conscious deep breaths into your heart, connecting with that feeling of being in nature, connecting with your feeling of your highest self. And that's a form of meditation already. And then you can just keep building on it from that. And if you're truly interested, you'll always find the next step forward to deepen your meditation practice.
mm. Wow. Like you said, start from where you are, right? And just, just start. It doesn't have to be major, right? You don't have to start and just get it all at once. You can start by just taking deep breaths to your heart, right? Just like you've explained to us. Just, okay. And do you think, I would like to ask, right? Do you think by starting from where I am, I would eventually get to the point where I'm very good at meditation?
So I think everyone has that potentiality. And I have talked to people who said when they started meditating, they could meditate for 20 seconds. And these are people who've
Mm,
been diagnosed, like with ADHD, for example, or with other forms of neurodiversity. And they had an intrinsic motivation. They just wanted to learn to meditate and they kept practicing. And now they can. Now they can sit very happily in meditation for 20 minutes. And so 20 seconds to 20 minutes is a really amazing expansion of their ability to meditate. So I would say yes, that anyone who has the willingness to practice, you will absolutely learn. And I would say for everyone's different, but for many people, there's an immediate feeling of relief. I mean, why don't we practice it right now, Sakani, if you feel open to it? But just take a deep breath into your heart and just notice.
mm,
And for the listener, take a deep breath into your heart. And there's almost just like this clearing of awareness, this centering and focusing of our attention. And then what happens is I'm able to use, and this is true for every listener, I'm able to use my talents and my skill set and my wisdom, and I'm more productive in my work. I'm more focused in my relationships. I'm more present. I'm more joyful. I'm more aware of how incredible it is to be here on this beautiful day. And tomorrow's another beautiful day. And every
mm,
breath that I'm able to just breathe into my heart, and it's a conscious breath, it's almost like a reset that just helps me be very focused and very calm, very present, very clear. And then when I am focused and calm and present and clear, that actually helps me connect with different parts of the brain. So if I'm in stress and I'm feeling tension or pressure or anxiety, I'm coming from a fear based part of the brain. And that actually
mm,
disconnects me from the part of my brain that has access to long term memory and is able to make positive decisions and is able to follow through. And so, if I am feeling fear or stress or anxiety, taking some conscious deep breaths into my heart reconnects me to the prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of my brain that is able to get perspective, that is able to not make snap decisions, but is able to make accurate, truthful decisions that are guided by highest good. And then I also have the ability to follow through on those decisions. And so giving myself this ability to meditate actually frees me and it empowers me in relation to whatever I'm experiencing personally or professionally.
mm. Wow. Ooh, all right. And yes, I practiced it when you said, I should breathe into my chest, right? And like you said, it makes you feel more present and connected. And it just takes away, personally, from what I felt. I felt tensed initially, but I felt more relaxed and calm, right? So that is what I've noticed. And I believe, constant practice and everything, I'll probably get better at it. So, yes.
Perfect. I mean, you had an immediate connection with your higher self. That's
Mm,
beautiful.
wow, exactly. So, yes, and one of the principle you embody is asking, how may I be of service? Right. So how has living with that mindset transformed your whole life?
Great question. I love it. And I would say that is, I mean, I think I mentioned that earlier, but my parents naturally just taught me to share whatever you can possibly share and to be kind and treat everybody with respect. And so I think that was my natural orientation from my earliest memories. Then when I met my teacher, and my teacher was named Swami Shankarananda, he just lived and breathed being of service. Like he was so dedicated and devoted to being of service. So I would say that became even more conscious for me. And I would also say that when I was a professor, I also had that orientation. Like I loved being of service to my students and in my classes and my teaching and my scholarship. And so that's been kind of like a lifelong practice and commitment to me. And I guess what I would say that I notice when I come from that orientation of how can I be of service, it shifts me out of, there's just not a competition, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not
Mm,
trying to impress anybody, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. There's just a genuine helpfulness and interest and curiosity. And I would say that I approach every human from like this joy of meeting them and learning. Every human that I've ever encountered has so much wisdom and so many insights that are completely unique to them because their life path is completely unique to them. And so then I feel like when I'm listening and I'm greeting people on that level, they naturally just kind of share. They share good humor spontaneously, so I end up laughing with people a lot. They share really moving and meaningful insights. They are emotionally honest as well. And so people who are complete strangers to me will talk to me about very emotionally honest things. And so I think the word that humans use today to describe that is vulnerability. I think an older term for that is just open-heartedness. And so I do think it leads to open-heartedness. And I would say then just the orientation shifts because I'm not coming from ego and I'm not focused on anyone else's ego. It's more like I'm coming from and genuine intention and hope to come from highest good. And then I'm greeting highest good in everyone else as well. And so it honestly is the case. Like when I go to the grocery store or I'm standing in line at the post office or at the ATM machine or wherever I find myself, I just interact with everybody. And people naturally just kind of share laughter and they share helpfulness and they share kindness and just we just sort of have this natural connectedness of we're in this together. We're here in this moment. It's amazing to greet you and to meet you and to be here in this moment. And so there's an orientation of almost like everybody is my kin or my extended family, even if I'm just meeting them for the first time. And so life is really fun when we have that orientation. The world is a really beautiful place if we have that orientation that everyone is an extended member of my family, even if I'm just meeting them for the first time.
Wow. Oh, all right. Okay. I would like to say, I wish I was like that, but you mentioned that you were trained that way, right? Right from childhood. And the thing is, some of us were not actually, trained that way. Should I say some of us, our upbringing was quite different. But what do you think are like daily practices or habits that could, help us adopt that mindset and actually live the mindset?
Yes, fair. And I think it's important. Like, I want to honestly acknowledge when I talk to people, sometimes people say, like, I grew up and I felt pressure from my family, or I felt pressure from my culture or my religion, or I felt pressure at education, I felt pressure professionally and in the workplace. And so I just want to acknowledge that is a reality that people encounter.
Mm,
And then when people start, just it's a gentle shift in orientation. Like I would say, don't try to do anything that's dramatically different right away, but
mm,
gently shift your orientation. And so, one person that I talked to, I want to give a very concrete example of a person who said that. Like, I grew up feeling pressure from all those places that I just mentioned. And this person was feeling a lot of pressure professionally. They were
mm,
very accomplished professionally, but they weren't being treated with respect professionally.
mm,
And I just invited them to come from a different orientation, to come from an orientation of, I am here in the energy of respect for myself, and I am here in the energy of respect for everyone else who's part of this office, this program, this team, this profession. And I'm just going to, the next time I'm writing a report or making a presentation or part of a conversation, I'm going to bring that energy of respect into myself. And I'm going to invite that energy of respect to share through me in the words that I speak. And this person reported that they experienced a dramatic shift in their workplace. And they actually experienced dramatic unfoldments that led outwardly to achievement and success that they had not been experiencing before. But it came from this inner subtle shift in just, I'm going to come from the energy of respect. I respect myself and I respect everyone else. And then what happens is there's a natural orientation. Another way to put this is I open to highest good. I am here to be of service to highest good. And we're still in the same workplace, to give that example, or we're still in the same family situation, if we want to give that example. But I open to highest good. I'm coming from highest good, and I am here to be of service to highest good. And just notice what happens. And again, I would say, don't do anything dramatic and don't expect that there will be immediate dramatic shifts. But that person, I had a conversation with that person in October, and then they experienced a dramatic shift within the next 6 months that they reported
Mm,
back to me. So, just in the course of 6 months, coming from the energy of respect and including themselves in that energy of respect, they experienced a dramatic shift in 6 months. And that's not the only person who has mentioned that just kind of shifting our orientation or our intention can have really big implications for how we are experiencing our workplaces or our families or our relationships or ourselves.
wow. All right. So I'd like to say I'm learning a lot actually. And I hope my listeners will, learn as well. Right. And I also like that you said, it's not something you start today and then you start to see results immediately. This is long term, right? So it's all that matters is that you put in the effort and you try that mindset shift, right? So another thing is in today's fast-paced world, right, many people struggle with stress, comparison, constant distraction, and a whole lot, right, especially amongst young adults today. So how can we become more present and grounded in our everyday lives?
Yes, for sure. And I want to say, like, because I taught university students for many, many
Mm,
years. And so
right.
I talked very honestly with university students about their experiences of stress and the way that they would compare themselves to other people. And I think they often were able to articulate, and they would have these conversations in classes very bravely and openly. And they would talk about how I'm trying to think of how to say this. They felt pressure to curate. I don't know what you would say, but like how they presented themselves on social media, they felt pressure to curate an identity in a particular
Right.
way. And they would admit that I think some of them called it the fake me. So some of them would
Mm,
talk about they felt this pressure to curate the fake me on social media, and then they felt like there was a gap between that and the way that they actually felt, or the kinds of emotions that they were having, or the kinds of experiences that they were having. And so based on that, they developed this awareness. Okay, so I shouldn't take as being real the other things that I see on social media. So when I see
mm,
that person who seems to be living the perfect life and who seems to be living only on the sunny side of the street and who seems to have everything going for them, I shouldn't take that as authentically representing their lived emotional reality either. And so then they were able to develop more of a healthy sense of that's a curated image that that person
mm,
is presenting. And so I don't need to compare myself to other people's curated images. And I can allow myself to be emotionally honest with myself about how I feel. And I can allow myself to cultivate honest conversations with other people. And so these people, they were in their 20s and they were having these conversations with other people in their 20s, and they would talk about the most amazing things. So my students were really brave and honest, emotionally, very vulnerable about having these conversations. And then I think that that gave them a sense of there's actually nothing strange about my feelings. There's nothing
right.
strange about feeling that it's easy to compare myself to people on social media and feel like I'm not enough. But why don't I stop doing that? Like, why don't
Mm,
I just let go of doing that? And why don't I cultivate deep, meaningful connection and friendship with the people who are around me? And so I would say that was one way that students in my classes talked about being present and grounded, was just by being honest and not comparing themselves to something that was like actually highly produced and highly curated. And then that helped them just feel better about their own beautiful, very human reality that they were living.
Mm. All right. Wow. Okay. So, I would like for you to, talk to someone out there, right? Specifically younger adults, right? Just like an advice. So finally, if someone in their 20s feels lost or uncertain about their direction in life, what practices would you encourage them to develop to, help them feel more aligned with their goals?
So, one of the things that I would say is that I think each of us has, I don't know if you want to call it like an inner GPS system or this
Mm.
inner ability to navigate. But if you think about yourself, Sakani, and you think about what inspired you to start a podcast, there's just like this intrinsic motivation. And then what happens is if you have this intrinsic motivation, then you'll be guided, you'll connect with the resources that you need to have the technical know-how and to develop like your conversation has just been amazing. It's been awesome and so fun to talk with you. And so clearly you have that talent, but it's also something that you cultivated and developed. And so that's just an example. Like I think each of us has this inner GPS or this inner navigation system. I would say, and I say this with a great deal of respect, but often I don't know that we're taught to connect with our inner GPS system. And so to invite people to just listen inwardly. And I think often there's a spark of joy and there's a spark of curiosity and there's a spark of motivation. So there's a feeling of, I'm really interested in this. And I have a feeling of joy and I have a feeling of energy. And that feeling of interest and joy and curiosity and energy, I think is really important to connect with because, I mean, I'm just thinking about, people I know who've gone to med school or who have become surgeons. And there's a lot of study, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of self-discipline involved with that. And if you're coming from that inner spark of joy and curiosity and you have this motivation to learn and to be of service, it'll keep you going like through those long nights and through the studies and through all the different phases of your training and your being of service professionally. And so for every listener, not that you need to start a podcast or be a doctor, but every listener, I think, has that spark of curiosity, of joy, of interest, and to connect with that, and then to connect with, okay, so what are the talents or the skill sets or what is the training that would support me in taking the next step forward in that. And so I know people who have, for example, majored in one thing and then said, well, actually, I want to be a veterinarian. And so I need to go back and take science classes or math classes, or I want to be an anthropologist. And so I need to go back and take these classes, or I want to be a doctor. I want to get my PhD, but in a different field than I studied as an undergraduate, or I want to go to law school. And everyone that I know has just been guided step by step. They've figured out, okay, so this is what I'm studying right now, this is what I'm learning. Someone I know is studying to be a physician assistant right now, so she's training and is going to get patient-facing hours. And so just whatever it is that you need for each listener, stay with that spark of curiosity and joy and that feeling of aliveness and energy. And then also be honest with yourself because, for example, like that person I know who's going back to school to become a physician assistant, there was a little bit of a transition because she hadn't been studying for a while and she had to get back into, okay, I'm dedicating myself to this time in the evening, every evening after work. And I'm going to remember how to use flashcards to study the things that I need to study. And now she loves it. But there were like a couple months where she was getting adjusted to it. And so if you go through a month or two of adjustment, just stay diligent and stay self-disciplined and connect with that inner motivation, and it will help you to keep going. And then there always is, like, I use the word guidance, but whatever word your listeners want to use, there's just like this next step that will unfold. You'll just hear a song on the radio, or you'll listen to a podcast, or you'll meet somebody, or you'll find a book that crosses your path in some way, and you'll be like, that's next. That's really interesting to me. And I'm really excited and motivated to study that. And then that gives you the follow through, right? Because I can't remember how many patient facing hours this person needs to get, but I think it might be 1,000 or something like that. And so some of those patient facing hours will be a delight. Some of them will be deeply challenging. Some of them you'll probably feel really fresh. Some of them you'll probably feel really tired. But if you're in contact with that intrinsic motivation, it will just always, always, always help you keep going forward.
Hmm. Wow. All right. I feel like you just spoke to me directly, honestly. I want to say thank you for that amazing one. And like you said, this is something that we have to practice, and eventually it gets better, right? And then you start to live a life that you are actually happy with, right? You start to make decisions that aligns with what you want for yourself without, external validation, right? So, yes, again, thank you. And it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment. You could either answer with a word or a phrase starting now.
Okay?
Okay, so what is one word that describes your 20s?
Joy.
Hmm. Guys, that's my name, by the way.
Yay!
Right. Okay. So, would you prefer morning meditation or evening meditation?
Morning.
Okay. So, what is a book that deeply influenced your life?
The Bhagavad Gita, which are yoga philosophy teachings.
Wow. Okay. The author of the book.
So it's compiled, and I don't know that there is for sure an author of the book. It's sort of like yogic teachings used to be passed down orally, and then they eventually were written. But in the ancient times, many of the yogic teachings do not have an author attributed to them.
Okay. All right. Understood. And yes, what is one daily practice you never skip?
Meditation.
All right. And finally, what is one piece of wisdom every young adult should hear?
I think honestly, trust the light within yourself. And when I say light, every human carries awareness, every human carries curiosity, every human has the ability to make a decision and find out what are the consequences of that decision. And then I would say, keep the wisdom, because clearly sometimes you make a decision and you're like, yes, that really worked. I want to do that again. And then sometimes you make a decision and you're like, ouch, I do not want to do that again. So keep the wisdom and drop the pain. And that helps you drop self judgment, and it helps you move forward to create even more wisdom and even more of a life that you love.
Wow. All right. So, yes, thank you, Swami. This has been amazing. And, thanks for joining us. Your insights, it reminds us that why life may be filled with, uncertainty and all, true peace actually begins within, right? True kindness, wisdom, self-awareness, right? And a willingness to serve others. We can actually build a purpose-filled life, basically. And yes, thank you, Swami. And before you go, where can listeners get to, learn more about you and also connect with you?
Absolutely. And Sekani, thank you, because I think all of those qualities that you just said, you have exemplified in our conversation today. So thank you for that. And yes,
Wow.
people are welcome to visit our website. It is awakeyogameditation.org. Awakeyogameditation.org. And everyone's welcome to join meditations. You can be a brand new meditator, or maybe you've meditated before. Everyone's welcome. And then you can email me at at awakeyogameditation.org. We share meditations on Zoom and on YouTube, and people are welcome from around the world. We also share teachings on Substack and on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook as well. And so you're welcome to connect with us on any of those platforms.
Oh, okay, so I want to say thank you, Swami, for the compliment. I really appreciate it. And yes, for the links, I'm gonna put it in the show notes so it's easily accessible for listeners, right? And to my listeners, I want to say thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone you think might need this, and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Swami. Do you have a beautiful day ahead of you?
Much joy to you, Sekani, and to your listeners.
All right. Thank you. Take care.